Mercure Crosswalk contributor, and I'm here to walk you through my article, What is the Best Parenting Style? How we parent our children can affect and impact everything from our kids' health to their relationships. And we should want to support healthy development and growth, healthy interactions and communication, and healthy discipline and correction. You might not have thought much about your parenting style, but this article we're going to talk about the 4 main parenting styles and which one is best for raising kind, well-adjusted kids. So these are from Diana Barund, who is a developmental psychologist at the University of California at Berkeley. She first defined the main categories of parenting. The 4 categories are authoritarian, permissive, authoritative, and uninvolved and neglectful. And we're going to go through each of those. Authoritarian parenting. This is the parent who desires complete control over their offspring. The moms and dads rarely invite feedback or input from their children. It invokes stern discipline, often in the form of corporal punishment. Common characteristics of authoritarian parenting include strict rules with little thought to the child's feelings, expect obedience without any thought to the child's social, emotional, or behavioral needs, rarely explains the reasons behind a consequence or rule. Communication is nearly always parent-child, rarely child-to-parent, uses tough love, and is very rigid, allowing for little flexibility. Unfortunately, some Christian parents can fall into this authoritarian parenting, and it doesn't always work out well for the parent or the child. Now, permissive parenting, these parents are more concerned with keeping their children happy above all. They often avoid conflict, will give in to their child's wants at the first cry of distress. They also consider themselves their children's friends rather than their mother and father. Common characteristics of the permissive parent include a child-centric household, demands little of the child, communicates openly. Children usually make most of the decisions in the home. They rarely set rules, or they rarely enforce rules, let the kids do what they want, and they add limited guidance. Authoritative parenting are much more in tune to their children's needs. We prefer to guide our children using honest and open communication methods to impart our values. Children with authoritative parents are usually very self-disciplined and can express their own ideas. They recognize, authoritative parents recognize the value of being the leader in their home. Common attributes of the authoritative parent include: we set clear rules and expectations. We have flexibility and understanding of our children. We communicate frequently. We listen to our kids. We allow natural consequences to our children's actions. And we are nurturing and supportive. The 4th category, broad category of parenting styles, is neglectful parenting. This is also the uninvolved parent. These parents limited their engagement with their kids. They rarely enforce rules. They come across as cold and uncaring, although not always on purpose. Generally, these moms and dads have their own struggles, which supersede their ability to be warm toward their children. The kids fend for themselves is a common trait of having a neglectful parent. The parents are uninvolved or overwhelmed with other things. They provide little attention, guidance, or nurture. They struggle with self-esteem issues. They have difficulty forming attachments. So what is the best parenting style? You may recognize yourself in some of these descriptions that I have given. Authoritative parenting is the best. They are the ones who have more. If you're an authoritative parent, your kids will be independent, socially competent, and self-reliant. Kids are less likely to experience relationship difficulties, poor self-regulation, low self-esteem, and substance abuse, as those are traits of a permissive parent, a neglectful parent, and authoritarian parent. Authoritative parents are leaders in your home. We are the ones, we recognize that someone needs to be in charge and it needs to be the adult. We're the final authority, but we're not the dictator. That would fall under the authoritarian parenting style. That means that But being an authoritative parent means that we make the hard decisions. We enforce the rules, but we also offer that compassion, that understanding. We're able to adapt the rules for each child. Because if you have more than one kid, you don't parent them all the same. And especially if you have a kid with special needs, there are different ways to parent that child. And you want to know the number one way to ensure you're the leader in the home? Make your household marriage-centric rather than child-centric. That means that your relationship with your spouse is more important than your relationship with your child. Doesn't mean that your relationship with your child isn't important. It means that your relationship with your husband or your wife is more important. And if you're a single parent, this means that you have a life separate from your child. Questions to ask to see if you're operating a marriage-centric or child-centric home include: do you always consider how your decisions impact your kids? Which relationship do you spend more time on? One with your kids or one with your spouse? Do you regularly take off your mom and dad hat and put on your husband and wife hats? If you realize that you're having a child-centric home and you want to change that to a marriage-centric home so that you can be the authoritative parent that your kids need, here are 6 ways to change that. View your children as separate from you. Seems simple. Examples include, to see how you do this, examples include that you allow them to decide whether or not to play in a sport, participate in an activity. In middle and high school, your kids should be free to pick in their classes, even if you might not agree with their choices. You create physical boundaries between you and your children. This means that your children don't sleep in your bed with you on a regular basis. That doesn't mean they can't snuggle, doesn't mean that when they're sick you can't have them sleep in your room with you, but it means on a regular basis your kids have their sleep beds, and you have yours. And you recognize that mothering doesn't take up all your time. And I mean the way we were when our kids were babies, when we had to do 24/7 care of them. As our child's older, they should be able to entertain themselves. They should be able to clean after themselves and take care of themselves. We have to stop doing so much for our kids that they can do for themselves. And we should focus on being the world's greatest spouse as opposed to the world's greatest parent. If we're showing how much we love our spouse, that is creating that safe environment for our kids. And we stop enabling our kids. That means that we assign the emotional and practical responsibility for our child's misbehavior to the rightful owner, the child. That means we stop trying to solve our kids' problems. Children will not grow up problem-free, and that's okay. Learning to solve their problems is important for their growth. And then we're going to have a relationship with our kids, but not be in a relationship with our kids. The distinction is when we're in a relationship with our children, in a relationship with our kids, we prioritize the relationship over everything else, which leads to permissive parenting. When we have a relationship with our children, we enjoy being around kids, but we know that there's a subtle barrier between us because I'm not a peer. The good news is that when your child's a young adult, we segue into the friendship season, and this is where you're friends with your kids. Take inventory of your parenting style and make the switch to authoritative parenting, and watch your children blossom and grow into who God has called them to be.